The story centers around James Foster, a 38-year-old financial analyst known for his meticulous nature and unwavering dedication to his family. James is the kind of person who remembers birthdays, anniversaries, and even the little things like his wife's favorite flowers. With a career in a demanding field, he still finds time for his two children, Ella and Liam, and his wife, Olivia. Their family life, to outsiders, looks picture-perfect: a suburban home, weekend barbecues, and frequent family movie nights. Olivia, 36, works as a senior marketing executive. She's smart, charming, and ambitious. Known for her ability to light up a room, Olivia thrives on challenges at work. However, in recent months, she's become more engrossed in her job, often staying late at the office or attending events. While James sees her as a strong partner, Olivia secretly feels underappreciated. She longs for excitement and romance, things she feels have faded over the years of marriage. Her desires remain unspoken but are evident in her growing emotional distance. Their daughter Ella, aged 10, is an artistic soul. She loves painting and often creates vivid drawings of her family. Liam, just 6 years old, idolizes his father and enjoys building toy forts with him. For James, his children are his world. They ground him and motivate him to work hard. Every day, he makes it a point to be home for dinner, eager to hear their stories about school and their little triumphs. But James's daily life isn't without its own struggles. His career, though successful, leaves little room for spontaneity. Days are filled with meetings, spreadsheets, and planning for a future he assumes is secure. He often ignores small signs of Olivia's dissatisfaction, brushing them off as stress or fatigue. Enter Ethan Hayes, Olivia's boss. In his early 40s, Ethan is everything James is not: charismatic, impulsive, and a risk-taker. As the head of a fast-growing marketing agency, he exudes power and confidence. Olivia finds herself drawn to his charm and the way he notices her contributions at work. For the first time in years, she feels truly seen. Ethan, on the other hand, sees Olivia as a conquest. Behind his polished demeanor lies a selfish streak. He thrives on seduction and the thrill of breaking boundaries. Unbeknownst to James, Olivia and Ethan have been meeting outside of work. It started as late-night brainstorming sessions, but over time, the meetings grew more personal. Olivia knows she's treading dangerous ground, but she's trapped between her longing for excitement and the guilt of betraying her family. James begins to notice subtle changes. Olivia's phone is always face down. She spends longer hours at work, and her laughter no longer carries the warmth it once did. He convinces himself that it's just a phase, unaware of the storm brewing right under his roof. While the surface of their lives appears calm, hidden desires and unspoken tensions threaten to unravel everything. For James, Olivia, Ethan, and even the children, life is about to take a dramatic and irreversible turn. James Foster always believed his marriage to Olivia was built on a strong foundation. But over the past few months, subtle changes in her behavior began to unsettle him, like a small crack spreading across a sturdy wall. At first, he brushed them off as work-related stress. Olivia was at the peak of her career, and long hours were expected. Yet something about her demeanor didn't sit right. It began with her phone. Olivia had always been casual about it, leaving it on the kitchen counter or sofa. Now it rarely left her side. Whether she was cooking, watching TV, or even tucking the kids into bed, her phone was always within arm's reach and always face down. The shift was subtle, but James noticed. Occasionally, he caught her typing furiously, only to stop and lock the screen when he entered the room. When he asked who she was texting, she'd shrug and say, "Just work stuff." Her tone was light, but James couldn't shake the feeling that she was hiding something. Late nights at the office became more frequent. "There's a big campaign coming up," Olivia would say, avoiding eye contact. At first, James believed her. She was a dedicated professional, and tight deadlines were nothing new. But as her absences grew longer, his trust began to waver. One night, as James prepared dinner for the kids, Ella asked innocently, "Is Mom working late again?" "She's always working now." The comment hit James like a punch to the gut. Even the kids were noticing. There were other changes, too small, seemingly insignificant things that added up. Olivia started paying more attention to her appearance. Wearing dresses James hadn't seen before and spritzing herself with perfume on days she claimed to have, casual meetings. She was smiling more, but not at him. The warm, genuine smile that used to light up their mornings was now reserved for someone, or something else. James's unease grew when Olivia began distancing herself emotionally. Conversations became shorter, more superficial. Her laughter, once spontaneous and shared between them, now felt forced or absent. James tried to reach out, suggesting a family outing or a date night, but Olivia always had an excuse. Too tired, too busy, or maybe next week. Her responses felt rehearsed, like lines from a script. The final straw came one Friday evening. James had planned a surprise dinner at their favorite restaurant, hoping to rekindle the spark in their marriage. But when Olivia came home, she looked annoyed instead of grateful. "I told you I had a work dinner tonight," she said, slipping into the bedroom to change without waiting for his response. James stood in the kitchen, staring at the empty table he had set, his stomach sinking. The disconnect between them felt like a chasm he couldn't cross. The doubts that James had been suppressing began to consume him. He tried to convince himself he was imagining things, but deep down, he knew something was wrong. The woman he had loved for years was slipping away, and he was powerless to stop it. Little did James know, the truth was more devastating than he could ever imagine. James's unease reached a boiling point one rainy Wednesday evening. Olivia had once again left the house dressed to perfection, claiming she had an important client dinner. James wanted to believe her, but the lingering doubts gnawed at him. He replayed her excuses in his mind, trying to find a way to reconcile the woman he loved with the growing distance between them. After she left, James wandered through the house aimlessly. The kids were asleep, and the silence only amplified his thoughts. When he entered the kitchen, Olivia's phone buzzed on the counter, an unusual sight. She never left it behind. James hesitated, torn between respecting her privacy and the need to know the truth. The screen lit up, revealing a message. "I can't wait to see you tonight. Let's make it unforgettable. Ethan." James's breath caught in his throat. His hands trembled as he stared at the message. His heart raced, his worst fears confirmed in an instant. Ethan, the name Olivia had casually mentioned before. Her boss. The man she said was just a professional mentor. The words on the screen painted a very different picture. For a moment, James froze. The flood of emotions was overwhelming. Disbelief, anger, heartbreak. He felt like the ground beneath him had vanished. Questions swirled in his mind. How long had this been going on? Why hadn't he seen the signs sooner? How could she do this to him, to their family? Fighting the urge to throw the phone against the wall, James instead placed it back on the counter. He needed proof, something undeniable. He couldn't confront her on suspicions alone. Determined, he grabbed his coat, got into his car, and decided to follow her. The rain blurred the windshield as he tailed Olivia's car through the city. He kept a safe distance, his heart pounding with every turn. After a short drive, she parked in front of an upscale restaurant, one they used to visit for anniversaries and special occasions. James pulled into a spot across the street, watching as she walked in. A few minutes later, a sleek black car pulled up, and a man stepped out. Even through the rain, James could see him clearly. Ethan. James's knuckles whitened as he gripped the steering wheel. He watched as Ethan greeted Olivia with a hug, one far too intimate for coworkers. They entered the restaurant together, laughing. James felt a bitter pang. He hadn't seen Olivia laugh like that in years. He debated his next move. Should he storm in and confront them? Should he wait for them to leave? His emotions were at war. Anger demanding immediate action, heartbreak urging caution. James decided to wait. He needed more than just the image of them walking into a restaurant. After what felt like hours, they emerged, their body language leaving no doubt about their connection. Ethan placed a hand on Olivia's back as they walked toward his car. Instead of returning to her own vehicle, Olivia got in with him. James followed as they drove to a boutique hotel nearby. His heart shattered as he watched them check in, Olivia clinging to Ethan's arm as if she didn't have a husband or a family waiting at home. James sat in his car, staring at the hotel entrance, the rain pounding against the windows. Tears blurred his vision as a wave of betrayal washed over him. The woman he had trusted with his heart, his life, had been living a lie. The pain was unbearable, but amidst it, anger began to take root. He took out his phone and snapped photos of them entering the hotel. Proof he knew he'd need later. When James finally returned home, he felt hollow, like a shell of the man he once was. Olivia arrived hours later, her makeup slightly smudged, her hair hastily retouched. She acted as though nothing had happened, greeting him with a weak smile. James didn't say a word, but inside he was boiling. The confrontation was no longer a question of if, it was a matter of when. And when it happened, James knew it would be devastating. The truth had surfaced, and there was no turning back. James sat in his car, staring at the elegant restaurant through the windshield. The rain had stopped, but the air was still heavy with moisture. He gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles white, as he watched through the large windows. Inside, Olivia and Ethan sat at a candlelit table by the window. She was laughing, her hand lightly grazing his across the table, a gesture that once belonged to him. He had planned this moment carefully. It wasn't just about confronting Olivia. It was about reclaiming his dignity, about making sure she felt the full weight of her betrayal. His wedding ring rested in his pocket, cold and metallic, a symbol of promises now broken. Taking a deep breath, James stepped out of the car and crossed the street. Each step felt heavy, deliberate, as if he were carrying the weight of their entire marriage on his shoulders. The restaurant door swung open, and the warm glow of chandeliers spilled onto his face. The hum of conversation and clinking glasses filled the air. But for James, everything was drowned out by the pounding of his heart. He spotted them immediately. Olivia was mid-laugh, her head tilted slightly, her blonde hair catching the soft light. Ethan leaned in, a confident smirk on his face. Neither of them noticed James until his shadow loomed over their table. "Good evening," James said, his voice calm but laced with steel. Olivia's laughter died instantly. Her head snapped up, her eyes wide with shock and terror. "James," she stammered, her voice barely a whisper. Ethan looked confused, glancing between James and Olivia. "Who's this?" he asked, his tone casual but cautious. James ignored him, his gaze fixed on Olivia. "Did you forget something, Olivia?" he asked, pulling the wedding ring from his pocket and placing it on the table. The sound of the metal hitting the wood was louder than it should have been, cutting through the ambient noise like a knife. Olivia's face drained of color. "James, please, it's not what you think," she began, her voice trembling. James raised an eyebrow. "Really? So this isn't your boss, Ethan? The man you've been sneaking around with? The one you spent the night with at a hotel while your children were at home, wondering where their mother was?" The words hung in the air, drawing the attention of nearby diners. Ethan shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his confident demeanor faltering. "I think we should take this outside," he suggested, his tone meant to diffuse the situation. James laughed, a cold, bitter laugh. "Outside? Why? So you can keep pretending this didn't happen?" "No, I think here is perfect." He leaned in slightly, his voice dropping but still cutting through the tension. "Do you have any idea what you've done, Olivia? What you've destroyed?" Tears welled up in Olivia's eyes. "James, Save it," James snapped, cutting her off. "I followed you. I saw everything. The restaurant, the hotel, the lies. Do you know what it's like to see the woman you've loved for years laughing with another man? Touching him like you used to touch me?" Ethan finally stood, trying to maintain control of the situation. "Look, man, I think you've said enough." "No," James interrupted, his voice sharp. "You don't get to speak. You're nothing but a pathetic excuse for a man who preys on someone else's wife. But you'll be getting what you deserve soon enough." James turned his attention back to Olivia. "And you," he said, his voice trembling with anger. "I gave you everything. our family, our life, our trust. And for what? A few stolen moments with him. Olivia reached out, but James stepped back, shaking his head. Don't. You've already taken enough from me. He pulled out his phone and placed it on the table. These photos, he said, showing them pictures of Olivia and Ethan entering the hotel, are going to the lawyers. You've made your choice, Olivia. Now you can live with the consequences. The humiliation in Olivia's eyes was evident. Ethan looked furious but powerless, his usual confidence replaced by the realization of the damage this would cause. James straightened, his breathing heavy but his resolve intact. I hope it was worth it, he said before turning on his heel and walking out of the restaurant. As he stepped back into the cool night air, James felt a strange mix of emotions. The pain was still raw, but there was also a sense of closure. He had faced the betrayal head-on, and now it was time to reclaim his life. What Olivia and Ethan didn't know, and what James had planned, was that this confrontation was only the beginning. His revenge would not be quick or simple. It would unravel slowly, just like the trust they had shattered. James walked away from the confrontation with a sense of grim satisfaction, but he knew his work wasn't finished. Olivia and Ethan's betrayal had left a scar, and James was determined that they would feel the weight of their actions. Revenge wasn't just about exposing their affair. It was about unraveling the lives they had so carefully constructed. Over the following days, James meticulously gathered evidence. The photos of Olivia and Ethan at the hotel, their messages from her forgotten phone, and records of their frequent late-night dinners. All of it formed a damning dossier. James wasn't just seeking justice for himself but also ensuring the damage would leave no room for excuses. His first step was contacting a divorce lawyer. James knew that Olivia's affair would play a pivotal role in securing custody of their children. Ella and Liam were his priority, and he refused to let their mother's recklessness disrupt their lives. When he presented the evidence to the lawyer, they assured him it would paint a clear picture of Olivia's breach of trust in court. Next, James turned his focus to Ethan. He discovered through a few discreet inquiries that Ethan's professional image wasn't as polished as it seemed. A colleague of Olivia's, whom James had befriended, revealed that Ethan had a history of questionable behavior. He had manipulated company finances before, often under the guise of client expenses. James contacted the HR department at Ethan and Olivia's workplace anonymously, providing them with records of Ethan's financial indiscretions. He included receipts for hotel bookings and lavish dinners charged to the company's corporate card. The evidence was undeniable, and within days, an internal investigation was launched. Ethan was suspended pending further inquiry. The first cracks in Ethan's world appeared when the investigation went public within the company. Word spread quickly, and soon Olivia became the target of whispers and stares in the office hallways. While she had been trying to move past the restaurant confrontation, James's quiet actions ensured she couldn't escape the fallout. But the unraveling didn't stop there. James uncovered a hidden twist. Ethan wasn't just cheating with Olivia. He had a long-standing history of affairs with other women at the company. One of those women, a former employee named Laura, had left her position abruptly 2 years earlier. Laura, it turned out, had been coerced into keeping quiet after Ethan threatened to tarnish her reputation. James reached out to her anonymously, encouraging her to come forward as the investigation into Ethan deepened. Laura's testimony was the final blow. She provided HR with a detailed account of Ethan's predatory behavior, backed by old messages she had saved. The company swiftly terminated Ethan, and he left the office in disgrace. His reputation in shambles, Ethan's wife filed for divorce soon after, taking their children and most of his assets. The man who had once seemed so untouchable was now utterly defeated. Olivia, meanwhile, faced the consequences of her choices in every aspect of her life. The internal investigation cleared her of direct involvement in Ethan's financial misconduct, but her reputation never recovered. She was passed over for promotions and slowly became a pariah in her once thriving career. James's evidence in the divorce proceedings sealed her fate at home. 2. He was granted full custody of their children, with Olivia allowed supervised visits. The ultimate twist came when Olivia, desperate to salvage what was left of her life, attempted to reach out to James. She begged for forgiveness, claiming she had been manipulated by Ethan. But James remained resolute. "You made your choices," he told her, his voice steady. "Now you have to live with them." James didn't find joy in the destruction he had caused. It wasn't about cruelty, it was about justice. He had given Olivia and Ethan the opportunity to be honest, to respect the family they had betrayed. When they didn't, he ensured their deceit wouldn't go unanswered. As James watched Ethan's carefully constructed world crumble and Olivia face the fallout of her decisions, he realized something profound. Their betrayal no longer defined him. By taking control of the situation, he had reclaimed his dignity and his future. It was time to rebuild, not with vengeance, but with hope for what lay ahead. For James, healing wasn't an overnight process. The betrayal had left deep scars, but he was determined not to let it define him. After the divorce was finalized, James took time to focus on what mattered most: himself and his children, Ella and Liam. He started with small changes. Early morning jogs in the park became a daily ritual, giving him a chance to clear his mind. He reconnected with hobbies he had long neglected, like woodworking and photography. These simple acts of self-care reminded him of who he was before the weight of betrayal had consumed him. His relationship with his children became stronger than ever. Every weekend, he planned outings with Ella and Liam, trips to the zoo, bike rides, or even baking messy batches of cookies in the kitchen. Their laughter was a balm to his wounded heart, and he found solace in the fact that he was creating new, happy memories for them. James also found support in unexpected places. Claire, the children's former nanny, reached out to check on them after hearing about the divorce. What started as casual conversations over coffee turned into something deeper. Claire had a warmth and understanding that James hadn't realized he needed. She never pried into his past but offered her company whenever he needed it. Slowly, James began to let his guard down. Their connection blossomed over time. Claire had a way of making James feel seen and appreciated, something he hadn't felt in years. She brought lightness back into his life, and her bond with Ella and Liam made their relationship feel natural and complete. For the first time in a long while, James allowed himself to hope for happiness again. At work, James threw himself into projects, earning respect and admiration from his colleagues. His dedication led to a promotion, a symbol of his ability to rebuild not just his personal life but his professional one as well. He also began forming new friendships, joining a community running group that introduced him to people who shared his goals and interests. Olivia, meanwhile, struggled to find her footing. Her career never fully recovered, and the distance between her and her children only grew. She expressed regret in every interaction, but James kept firm boundaries. He didn't hate her anymore. He simply couldn't allow her back into his life in the same way. As weeks turned into months, James realized he was no longer defined by the pain of betrayal. He had faced the storm and emerged stronger, with a new understanding of himself and what he deserved. He wasn't the same man he had been before, and that was a good thing. Betrayal is a storm that leaves nothing untouched, but from the wreckage, new beginnings can emerge. James's journey wasn't easy, but it was a testament to resilience, love, and the power of self-discovery. He learned that sometimes the hardest chapters in life lead to the most meaningful transformations. If you've ever faced betrayal, you know how deeply it can cut. But remember, it doesn't define you. You have the power to rebuild, to find joy again, and to surround yourself with people who truly value you. James's story is a reminder that even in the darkest moments, there's hope for light. What about you? Where are you watching from? And what part of the story resonated with you the most? Let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And don't forget to subscribe to Unheard Stories for more narratives that dive deep into the complexities of life and relationships. Your support means the world to us, and we're so glad you've joined us on this journey. Stay tuned for more stories that remind us all of the strength we carry within ourselves. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.